Hi, this is Chuck Rainey, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on 3SER KC Radio.
Just to start off, Chuck, I believe you initially started out playing trumpet. What prompted you to get on the path that led you to the bass?
Well, I'd always, not knowing it, been interested in the bass, and then when I was really young, about 5 or 6 years old, in piano lessons, I kept wanting to learn how to play the boogie woogie with my left hand on the piano. My piano teacher kept busting me. Also in college, in my piano classes, I got caught doing playing more bass-oriented things on the piano. I should have known then, and of course it's hard to know that you would go, you're interested. But I think it started way back when I was a trumpet player, in that I was playing tuba parts on the trumpet. And my band directors, there are two of them, very nice to me. One thing I can say have been, they were very kind, and not really grilling me too hard, but explaining to me that they needed trumpet, not the tuba. But it was always attempting to play tuba parts, especially in college where we had only one tuba and a lot of trumpets, and I would start playing that. Also in high school, we had a lot of trumpet players, and the band director had me and 4 other trumpet players during concert season play the bass violin in the orchestra. At that time, I didn't care much for it. But, he picked people that he thought could really do well for the orchestra if they played the bass violin. I did well. I didn't particularly care for it. I couldn't take it home. Also, too, before I started playing the trumpet, I played the viola. And I liked that contralto part of the great staff. And I liked the viola, except that I had lost a couple of them of the school's violins. And so he decided to try another instrument, which was the trumpet. I played guitar just before playing the bass. I wasn't a very good guitar player. I was more rhythm-minded.
Yeah.
And I have big hands, and so I had trouble playing certain chords. And so I just ended up playing single-note patterns. And the band that I was in at the time, which were 3 guitars and a drummer, we all had different things, and my part was to play single-note patterns, while the lead singer played lead guitar, and his wife was the background singer, and she played rhythm guitar. So one day somebody said, "Man, why don't you get a bass?" Because I was tuning the guitar, the E, A, D, and G strings down a step and a half. And actually, I was going a little bit lower than that, but I started out going down to D on the guitar. And so I finally saw a bass and asked my mom for a little help, and she got that bass and an amplifier for me, which was a Fender. And the band, excelled in that I was the only guy in that town that had an electric bass. And it was a good steel city, a lot of people, but still it was more of an organ upright town, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Organ bass and upright bass, and I was the only one there in that city with an electric bass. So everybody came out to see the bass and the band, hopefully we thought. So that's how I got to the bass. Always, and then I sang bass in a doo-wop group before I got out of high school, and I was a baritone in the high school choir. So it was leading toward the bass.
So you always had an attraction to those low sounds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A really nice touch I noticed on your website, you list a lot of people, you acknowledge people that have helped you along the way, everyone from your parents to your trumpet teacher at high school and your school band director. Do you think it's easy for some musicians as they become successful in later years to sometimes forget about where they came from and the people that helped them along the way?
I think probably it's easy to forget if you're not reminded. Fortunate because I'm always reminded, and people ask me, well, where did you come from, and who taught you how to do that, and where did you get the idea to do that? I think that a lot of players, when they do interviews, of course, they're reminded where they come from. Then there's some who don't quite make it to the big screen, if you know what I mean. They don't make it there, and they have no reason to remember unless they're in conversation with their peers or with the people that they grew up with. I kind of think everybody remembers because we spend a lot of private time, and we do remember. It's just that it's hard to know if they're not doing an interview or if they're not publishing articles or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, and then there are some musicians too that don't particularly care from where they came from, and they were glad to get out of, to get out of town, and they have a lot of bad memories about, how they were raised and where they came from. I have good memories, and I'm always proud to say that all those good memories, I just reflect on them all the time.
One of those people you worked with along the way was, in your younger days, was King Curtis. How would you describe that period now in terms of a learning experience for you?
Well, it was a great learning experience, a great step in that King Curtis was like a second father. He was very, very strict. And in being strict, especially about time and physical appearance, and also, too, about being in tune. And so I learned a lot from King Curtis. Everybody in the band did. We were all young except for the piano player. The piano player was George Stubbs, and he had been around a long time. But he was a gentleman, always took care of himself. Great musicianship outside of playing. But King Curtis was very, very important. Very, very important. I learned how, although my background was paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing in orchestras and when you're playing in a band, you got to pay attention to the leader, and he definitely instilled that. We were a very good band, and we never had a bad night or a bad song. He was a great leader. I really miss him tremendously. I take a lot of have a lot of interest in what made Harry Belafonte and King Curtis who they were. They were great leaders. Someone that I would go to war with. Very, very important, King Curtis, to me.
Looking back over your career, can you pinpoint a time when you got that first break? What would you consider your first big break in your career when things started to really turn around for you?
Well, John, I really was unaware financially of what was happening to me because I didn't have time to spend any money or pick up. And of course, you pick up your money. I was always a union musician, and you go down every Monday or Tuesday to the union and see what checks are in. That's from the studio side. That's when I really began to do a lot of projects. Someone else had to remind me or make me aware that I was making more money than I had been before I had started doing studio work. But also making me aware that I was on a lot of different projects, whereas in New York, I was in about 3 or 4 different environments as the top call bass player at one time, but I didn't look at it that way. I was just happy to play and happy that somebody called me, to do a session or to do a particular project. So I really didn't know until after I had been in for about 2 or 3 years. Was afraid to take a vacation because that's how I got in. The bass players that were already there before I got there, they were, buying houses, taking vacations, stuff like that. And the industry must go on. So they go to the new guy or go to someone else when the people they've been using are not around, if they're on vacation or out on the road. So it took me a long time before I even went out on the road again. Making sure that I was in New York Monday morning, to work. So I really, I never really reflected on, it took years, John. Probably, I didn't really realize what was going on with me until I got to Los Angeles. And in Hollywood, I began to see people knowing more about me than I knew about myself, about my history. When I got to Hollywood, and then I began to got new friends once I moved there, and then people begin to let you know. And then even today, there's a lot of music that I've done that I don't remember. I just don't remember it. So fortunate, especially in New York, working all day and then playing in a club all night. Of course, this was all before I got married. But I was right. I just happened to be very fortunate to hit right with the right person in New York for them to want me to play. So that's a long way to give you my answer.
Yeah.
But I really never reflected on it until I got married. When I got married, then the wife, of course, started counting money and start reminding me of this, reminding me of that.
Have you ever stopped and pondered what path your career may have taken had you not made the move to Los Angeles and stayed in New York?
Yes, I have. I had two opportunities at the time that I went to L.A. I could have gone to Germany, in that I had a contract to play with the radio orchestra in Frankfurt. And the contract was for 2 years. And the money was relatively good. It was going to be steady for 2 years. And I think I was only going to be involved, 3 days out of the week, except for when the orchestra traveled. And if I had taken that contract, I would probably still be in Germany. And I say that because I've been to Germany since that time many, many, many times, especially to Frankfurt. And they have a pretty good, sizable contingent from the United States living in Frankfurt. So I think that if I had taken that, my career, I would be in Germany. I would be in Europe for sure, if I had taken that. But of course, I just got through doing, I think Wallen Matuli or Quincy Jones, or one of those albums, and I had done a summer tour with Quincy and Roberta Flack, who were together at that particular time, sharing the stage. And I wanted to go to Los Angeles. I've always wanted to live in Los Angeles since the Beatles tour in '65, and this was an opportunity to go to Hollywood, and so I chose Hollywood. If I'd gone to Germany, I would still be there because I would like it.
Just talking about session work in general, how difficult can it be going into the studio for a session with an artist that you haven't worked with before? Is there a settling in period that you need to go through before you feel comfortable in the studio with someone you haven't worked with in the past?
Are you talking about an artist or other musicians?
Or both, yeah.
Well, to me, there's no problem at all. As a matter of fact, I think you get better work done if it's an impromptu situation. Mm-hmm. And that's what the training, although most of us don't realize we're being trained for something, but when you're playing in pickup bands, before I even got into the studio, when I first got to New York, I played in a lot of pickup bands. Now, most of the artists that I played with, I knew their music because they were popular, but I played in a lot of pickup bands, There were musicians that would stand on the corner of 44th and Broadway. I forget the name of that club. And just look, like people do when they're going out on the bean truck or looking for work. You just take your axe and you go down there and you hang out. And when people need a musician, they go to that corner and pick up a musician, which is how I got started. Really, not how I got started, but that's the first session I did. That's how I did it. I was just standing there with my bass. The guy asked me, was I selling it or was I a player? I said, well, I'm a player. And he said, well, we got a session over here. We need a bass player. What question did you ask me, John? I got a tendency to be long-winded.
Is there a settling?
Playing with new people.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting. It's exciting to get a session because you, from the way that I handled it, I don't ask any questions. And I think probably that's a small part of why I was hired so much. A lot of musicians want too much information. Mm-hmm. And basically I watched them almost talk themselves out of being hired because who's the producer, who's on the gig, who's the artist, what kind of music is it, when am I going to get paid, and those kind of things. Whereas I never ask those questions. Even today I don't ask those kind of questions. If I'm free and a stranger that I don't know is asking me to do a date and he's going to pay me fairly, I just show up. I don't care what kind of music it is. You learn that in New York. In New York, you have to make money. If you don't, your clothes are not going to be clean, you're not going to be clean, and you have no place to stay. And New York can be ruthless when it comes to stuff like that. So you got to make every dime that you can make so that you can keep that plug out of the door where you live, and that you can keep yourself clean and respectful, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't ask those kind of questions. If I'm not working and I need to work, I would rather work with a group of new musicians or new artists any day, rather than to sit on the stoop just fiddling with my bass. Now, while we're in this train of thought, a lot of my career began by me doing that, by me doing favors for people asking me to come do a demo or to do a session, and sometimes people will say, I can't pay you, but I'll make it up to you. And some people say, they'll tell you, but they're going to pay you, and it never comes through. Now, of course, that hurts when you don't get paid and you're looking to make money. However, a lot of those people became successful. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but maybe I should. A lot of them did become successful as producers or arrangers, and they came back to the horse that brought them in. They went back to the same people that helped them out, or the people that they didn't pay, and now they got a deal, and so now they want to go back to the same people. Experience is important too.
Yeah.
Drummers find that drummers have to toe that row a little bit harder than we do, in that you can't use the same drum set on the session that you use on the road. At least you didn't in those days. Drums are tuned differently, they sound differently, and the same with amplification. The bass players and guitar players, you can't play the same way in the studio as you do when you're doing a gig, a performance. The equipment has to be different because you just got to do things a little bit differently. Also, too, you find a group of guys that I've worked, I guess, with about maybe 3 or 4 different solid rhythm sections, with exchanging players every now and then. And people want a musician who has been there before, because part of the problem is listening and taking directions and understanding that you're there to help somebody be successful. Whereas a lot of players don't. They just want to go in there and just play, put their signature on what they're doing. And so people will hire the same people over and over and over again. It's really difficult back in that time for new people to get on the scene. You have to die, be very disruptive, or just quit. Because, and I understand, I've done the same thing in producing. Haven't produced that much, but when I did, I will go to people that have done it before rather than to hire new people. It's just the way to go. Like if you have a successful record using 4 or 5 people that you choose, when I go to do the same kind of record, I'm going to hire the same people because they've already been there.
Absolutely.
The only difficulty that I've found, and it wasn't really that difficult, is when I do a session or a project where the band leader or the leader of the band is the bass player who sings. And that can be very difficult because in my case, I sit there and I'm bothered by this individual being very, very particular about what I'm doing, especially if it's just R&B or funk. But he's being very, very particular and sort of kind of bother me a bit until I'm told, well, he's the singer and the bass player in the band. Now I understand, and I've had to say 4 or 5 times when I see it going that way, is this the lead singer in the band or the bass player in the band? Because, a lot of record companies do not allow, they might sign the band, but they really want the lead singer. Or in most cases, they just want the singer and he comes with the band. So they'll record the music without his or her band. And then sometimes some of those musicians are on the set, a bit pissed off because they're not playing. But producers have the way that they want to do what they want to do and hire the musician they want to hire, and record companies go with that. That's the only problem that I would say working for new people. I like to be told what's going on, especially when there are people around giving directions or having too much to say about the music, and until you're told that they're connected to the project, it sort of is a bother. I remember the first records I did with Steely Dan, Kenny, the guitar player, Jeff Carroll, the original drummer, they were always on the date. and they didn't seem to, Jeff was always a great guy, but it's kind of difficult when you want to know it's a private session. Who are these people? And why they're making any comment about anything. Of course, they didn't make comments, but they were just there. The answer to that question, the long way that I did, is I don't. Of course, it's great when you have a rehearsal and when you know the guys you're working with, and over a period of time, you do know the guys. After a while in New York and in L.A., you go to the studio, you know everybody because you've done so many dates with these people on and off over a period of time. But for the career professional studio player or musician, period, it shouldn't matter who you're working for or working with. It's only a 3-hour gig. Or if it's a tour, it's only 3 months or something like that,
That's
it shouldn't
true.
matter. To me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It matters if it's not good music.
Now, the act that most people seem to connect you with is Steely Dan, and the guys from Steely Dan, Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, have a reputation for being perfectionists in the studio. Is that pretty much how it was?
Yeah, they're very very, very professional. They were rock musicians, though, and did not know how to go about recording the kind of music that they were wanting to do. Fagen, a great writer and a very stylistic singer, which I imagine he learned and got a lot from Michael McDonald, because he reminds me a bit of Michael McDonald, in how he uses his voice. But they're very professional. They had a lot of questions that they could not answer. It's a good thing that they had the producer that they had, Gary Katz, because what he did was he went and got career studio musicians, or at least people that had done a lot of recording. And you pick a band, so you pick the band members, or at least you try to pick a band member that won't be a sourpuss during the gig if they don't understand something, or if they're taking something personal that's not meant personal. And Donald Fagen could, he's not exactly your popular character in a way, in that he's more of an introvert, and some things can be taken personal from him that are not personal. Me, I never care. Even if I know it's directed personally to me, I don't care. I just go and still and do the best I particularly can, because if they're successful, I go along with the success. I guess I learned that at home.
Did they always pretty much let you know what they wanted from you in the studio, or were they always open to your input and suggestions?
Well, definitely, they definitely very seldom knew what they wanted. They just wanted somebody to come up with something to fit what they already had, which was basically maybe a certain feel or on some chord changes. Half of that stuff, too, was done without even hearing a melody or a vocal, which is okay, because if you get people who are organized to play parts, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
It does not really matter. Every now and then, I got along very well with Walter. He's a good thinking musician. It's just the kind of bass player that he is. We're not the same kind of bass player, and a lot of things some things he wanted to hear, he was unable to play, because it just wasn't his thing, wasn't his style. And so, every now and then he would suggest some things or certain directions for me to go. And, of course, I went there to do the best I can to make the project happen. This is Warner Brothers, MCA Music. After a while, you realize they're spending so much money on this project, it's going to be a success.
Yeah. You have, through the years, had a great deal of experience working with other band leaders, and I guess that would be a great help to you now as a band leader yourself. Have you learnt a little bit from every band leader you've worked under? That's something you can adapt to your role now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's some people you work for that you just can't stand them. But being professionally correct or politically correct, you have to get the job done. And I've learned, John, mostly what I've learned is what not to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to what to do. And I've had 2 or 3 experiences. I've done 2 or 3 mini Chuck Rainey bandstand tours. Mainly, though, all 3 of them were on the East Coast of the United States. mainly because that's where all the people are. And you can get from venue to venue in an hour or 2 hours, as opposed to the further west you come, is longer to get to different places, especially if you come to Texas. Cities are much further apart. Anyway, I sort of learned that too, also too, how to handle people. Because, when you hire a bunch of people to do a particular thing, you're also hiring those people and their baggage. And their baggage meaning like, their temperament at home, how they leave home, their health issues, their conduct. You're hiring people's baggage. That's why if you really look at tours, you'll find that on the big tours, a lot of the same sidemen are in everybody's band.
Yep.
You look at Eric Clapton, or you look at somebody who's really a big name, and you look up there and you see people that were on somebody else's tour at one time, mainly because of experience and the baggage is you can deal with each individual's baggage, personal baggage that they bring to the gig. So I have learned a lot more. I've learned what not to do and how to deal with people. How to deal with people.
Now, I know you're not doing as much session work these days, anywhere near as much these days as in the past. It's your own projects that you're focusing on. Was there a defining moment when you decided to make that step?
No, the industry decided it for me. When I left L.A., there was not things were beginning to change. Everybody was getting their own studio, and the guys who were sitting down. Of course, the film industry is still alive and well. Not as much as it was back in the day, and you still have pit orchestras that are functioning. Things did change to where I was either going to have to get my own band in L.A. or go out on the road. But for me, I was very lucky in a way, in that at the same time that things were changing, I went through a very bad divorce. And the divorce and the way the situation was had me leaving L.A. Just looking at the divorce is bad enough, but then, of course, when you're not working as much, and there's always a financial crisis that goes down in a divorce. And so I went back to New York. I only stayed there, though, for maybe a year, if that, because things were also changing then. So I did not really make any decisions. The situation helped me make those decisions.
Yeah. An area that you've been prominent in is that of instructional books and videos. Tell us about those.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
You've had some involvement in instructional books and videos.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, I've always been interested in education. I think it more or less started when I started my textbooks, which it took a long time to do those textbooks, because I was basically also too a working musician, and I was just making notes and stuff like that. It took a long time to finish them, and I began to, as I started to finish them, though, I was going to do it for college credit. However, I had to spend a certain amount of time in the system, and at the time this was offered to me, it was impossible for me to spend any time in the system. Maybe if I was a Rhodes Scholar or somebody had worked it out, but they didn't come to me. The two institutions that offered me anything at all wanted me to be present, and I couldn't take 18 months out of I was at the top of my career at the time. And so then I just went ahead and put the books together and looked for a publisher. I've always done clinics and seminars. I've been a part of them. And more than learning how to play, a young music enthusiast, the basic thing that we have to go through in this industry is learning how to get along with people, how to pay attention, especially the people that we don't particularly care for, people that don't particularly care for us. And a lot of people read books, or young enthusiasts I'm talking about, they read books, they'll read an interview, or they'll put in their mind what they think is going on out here, and they're usually wrong. They need to learn how to play the instrument first, because everybody goes by and gets their, everybody is treated differently. If JoJo over here is having a problem with this particular orchestrator, and they're having a big problem, and he warns me, or he doesn't work for this particular guy because of a so-and-so and so-and-so, I can't take the same route because maybe I'm treated differently. People that I don't particularly care for, that I'm having a bad time with, I don't even bother to, unless it's another friend, but I don't go to another bass player and say, don't work for him because he does so-and-so and so-and-so or so-and-so and so-and-so, because the same situation may not happen to him. So in doing education, it's more of a, with me, of course you got to understand certain rules, the rules and regulations about music, but two, on the musicianship, the general musicianship is very, very important. Leaders already have enough of a problem. You go on a new date and here you got one musician asking a question every 5 minutes, a question that should be solidified just by looking and paying attention. But musicians are like, I guess, other people. You want to get known, you want to make sure that someone knows that you're there, not understanding that if they hired you, they know you're there. But in education, a lot of things seem to go awry when somebody wants to, where a musician doesn't understand. He's got to really listen well, and he helps when he's asked to help. I don't know. I could go around this horn a lot longer, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's more musicianship, I think, than playing the instrument. Because if a guy studies, he can play. And if he has experience, it's just getting along with people once you get there. Just getting along. So, again, I warned you, I was long-winded. But I do like being in those seminar forums and in clinic forums.
Yeah. And do they become a learning experience for yourself sometimes? Do you still learn things about the bass?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say not so much about the bass, but I do learn a whole lot of things about people.
Yeah.
And about how half the leaders and artists that I work for did not know Sikkim from Khmer about music. They were just good, natural musicians or singers or players. Like Donald Fagen, at the time that we were working with him, he could not read music, and he was not that good of a piano player at that time. That's why there was always another piano player, and when you see Steely Dan live now, sometimes they have two other piano players for real players, someone that can play and understand all aspects of the music.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, too, that can frustrate good musicians when they find that the person they're working for is not that adequate. But a lot of those people have hit records and they make a lot of money. And part of this job is to take care of your family, and to make money.
Absolutely.
Rather than, being a musician that's walking around with a beat-up car and living in a flat and living week by week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's important for everybody to understand. Not that you got to kiss somebody's butt. I don't mean that, but there is a way to present yourself to whatever environment you go. There's a way to present yourself that won't sound an alarm or have people choosing somebody else instead of you.
Now, I know you've been putting the finishing touches to a new CD project of your own, which will be out in the new year. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I've always, the two things, my environment, I came up around the Latin people. Excuse me. Came up around a lot of Latin people. At home, it was Puerto Rico and Cuba. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and when I moved to New York, it was Puerto Rico, Cuba, Africans. In moving to L.A., of course, you begin to get more, be around some Latin musicians, Latinos. And I've been here in Texas for 27 years, and of course that puts them right above Mexico. But I've always had a feel for the way I came up, and being around drum corps, being around drums. If I were a bass player, I'd be a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the music, I'm noticing today what I like to do is I don't like to forget where I came from, which was out of jazz and R&B, which I still they are very, very similar except for bebop. And I did come up right through the end of the bebop era, although my initial input into the industry was playing R&B and pop music. So this particular project, and I'm not known to sing. I'm known to sing background. I haven't done that many times over my career. But this particular record that I'm just finishing, I'm the vocalist, and I really love it. And I'm not a great singer, but I do have a character. I got something going on. And also, to fuse together R&B jazz with a world beat, which basically, when I say world beat, is just adding percussion. Island percussion or just percussion, percussion instruments. So basically what I've done is, and then I use probably I picked 4 records, 4 songs that will be hits, because I have to be careful. I have to be able to sing and play at the same time. And the bass is a very important instrument, and it's got to be where it's got to be. It's easier for a guitar player, a piano player to sing and play. But I have to choose material that I can sing and play. And so this particular record is basically going to be considered R&B, jazz, with Latin or African percussion, depending upon who's looking at it, what they want to call it. But that's what it is. It's a Latin jazz R&B fusion. Dance music.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to that. Anything else happening in the new year that you've got in your books yet?
Well, I've been doing the Victor Wooten's clinics for the last 10 years. And this upcoming year, he has 4 camps, really. He's got 4 camps going on, and if I'm not busy with my own career, my own support of the new record, I will be doing his clinics. I do a lot of nature clinics, not a lot, but I do a few.
Yeah.
Just pure nature, as opposed to music and nature, because I've always been interested in nature, and so I do like those kind of camps. And also doing my own clinics. Already I'm doing 4 set for next year at universities or high schools.
Oh, great.
I like doing that. But I'm really looking forward to March, set a date for March for this record to become public, and to look forward to there are 2 places that I've been that I really enjoy, and I have a very good following as a hybrid sideman, and that's in Japan and basically across Europe. I've never been to South America. The closest I got was Trinidad. And I've never been to Australia, which I'm going to dread the long ride. But I do want to go to Australia. I have a lot of quite a few people that are on my fan club that are coming out of Australia.
Oh, right.
So I'm looking forward to actually, and John, really between me and you and Dave both, I'm really looking for touring next year.
Fantastic.
Looking for touring, especially in Japan, Europe, and hopefully Australia and South America.
That'd be great. We'd certainly love to see you down here, and we're certainly looking forward to hearing the new CD. Chuck, thanks so much for your time. It's been an honour to speak to you.
Well, it's been great, man. Thanks a lot for thinking of me, and I'm glad to be of interest to anybody in your position, and it'd be a pleasure to meet you.
Well, we're here waiting for you, and if you do make it down here, make sure you let us know. We'd love to catch up.
All right, you got to help me out now, because I start looking for stuff whenever I go, and it's kind of hard. And I'm very fortunate to have a lot of correspondence, mainly because it's easy to respond. Sometimes remembering is a tough one. But please feel free at any time to contact me. And again, I apologize for last week. I just don't know what happened.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We got there in the end. That's the main thing. Okay.
The lady there in Australia, her name is Vanessa.